My watch buzzed insistently. Location update, Juniper Café, 9:14 a.m. I froze mid-step on the path beside Riverside Park. Lisa had promised me a morning walk among the tulips today, her only day off this month. Instead, her tracker placed her 20 blocks away, latte in hand, with someone else. I glanced down at my hands, still gripping the park map I'd printed last night. The crisp paper trembled as I swiped up on my phone and opened the companion app. A blue dot pulsed steadily over Juniper Café's brick facade. Northwest hint of Riverside Park. No hint of the rose-lined path where I'd planned to surprise her with coffee. I backed away from the tulip beds and headed for the parking lot. My heart pounded against my ribs as I called up security on my phone, pretending to check on a lost keycard. In the lobby's CCTV monitor, I spotted Lisa settling into a corner table, eyes bright, laughter lifted in mid-sentence by a man with dark hair and an easy grin, Jason, her college classmate. The cafe's warm light spilled around them, cocooning a scene I never expected to witness. This isn't real, I told myself. She must have a good reason. But the evidence blinked back at me, Lisa leaning forward, hand brushing Jason's arm. The rideshare route she'd booked this morning took her straight down Elm Street instead of toward our park. I watched her phone light up again at 9:18 a.m., a message I couldn't read. My chest tightened. I tapped live location and saw her dot shift to an outdoor table, then hover by the bulletin board displaying park event flyers. I remembered the first time she pointed out that map to me, how her eyes had lit up at the thought of weekend picnics. I slipped out of the lobby and hailed a taxi, giving the address for Juniper Café without a second thought. The traffic lights crawled as I rehearsed my words, calm, collected, questions, not accusations. Anger wouldn't get me answers. At the cafe's glass door, I paused. Inside, steam curled from ceramic mugs and the barista laughed as she handed Jason another latte. Lisa's hair was gathered into a loose bun, she glanced up and smiled, oblivious to my approach. My phone buzzed again, Lisa is nearby. The tracker pinged in my pocket, a reminder that every lie leaves a trail. I stood there a moment longer, recalling our walk here last spring, the way Lisa had reached for my hand as we mapped out the garden paths, promising me moments like today. I stepped inside, heart thundering. The scent of coffee and vanilla matched the tension in my throat. Jason looked up first, surprise flickering in his eyes. Lisa's smile faltered as she spotted me. "Thomas," she said, voice tight. I closed the distance and tapped my watch. "Explain this," I said, voice low, holding up my wrist so she could see the app. "Why are you here with him?" Her gaze darted to Jason, then back to me. The cafe's hum dimmed in my ears. I felt the weight of every promise I'd made to her, spoken in Riverside Park, sealed with laughter and shared secrets, crumble beneath the fluorescent lights. And in that moment, standing at their table amid the morning rush, I realized that truth would not wait for my permission. I folded my arms, meeting Lisa's eyes evenly. "Let's start with why you lied to me." I spent that afternoon replaying every moment I'd ever shared with Lisa, hunting for the first hint of shadow. My desk at the engineering firm felt confining as I scrolled through my location history one more time. The blue line on my phone map traced her path, our front door, Elm Street, Maple Avenue, entirely bypassing Riverside Park. I closed my eyes and let my mind drift back to the moments I'd once treasured, now tinged with unease. It began with paint chips. 18 months ago, we tore down wallpaper in our bedroom, leaving raw plaster behind. Lisa spread swatches across the bed, dove gray, pale sage, warm ivory. We laughed as we flicked samples at each other, the afternoon sunlight dancing over her hair. I remember brushing a chip from her shoulder with a gentle smile. Next time, I told myself, I'll notice more than the color. But I was too caught up in the painting, too enamored by her laughter, to see the fleeting pause when her phone buzzed. She'd glanced at the screen, eyebrows knitting for a half beat before she set it face down. I asked if it was nothing. She laughed it off. Nothing. Then came the symphony tickets, our anniversary gift. She presented them on the kitchen counter, wrapped in a bow, and my heart had leapt at her thoughtfulness. At the concert, the golden lights above the orchestra pit reflected in her eyes as the violin soared. She leaned in to whisper, "Isn't this magic?" I nodded, but midway through the second act, I caught her finger scrolling her phone under the velvet seat. She swore she was checking the time. I believed her when she said, "I just didn't want to miss the last number." Late-night grading sessions at school felt innocent at first. She'd bring home piles of exams, the kitchen lamp burning until midnight. One evening, I insisted on joining her for a cup of tea. I found her laptop closed and her blouse still warm from her body heat, but her phone lay face down on the table. I glanced at the screen and saw a single message preview, "See you at 5. I asked her about it later. "Oh, just Jason, he needed help with his lesson plan." That was all. I nodded and refilled her cup. I remember the family picnic at Riverside last summer, when Lisa announced she had to duck out early because of a staff workshop. She gave me a fleeting hug before slipping into her car. I watched her drive away in the gravel lot, headlights fading behind a cloud of dust. I recalled thinking, "It's just work," and turned back to our son, lifting him onto my shoulders so he could see the kite drifting overhead. Relief had been easier than suspicion. Bank statements told another story. I opened our online account one Sunday morning and found a charge for $56 at the Grind Coffee Bar on February 14th, Valentine's Day. I asked Lisa if she'd stop for a drink before our celebratory dinner. She paused, then said she'd met a colleague. The colleague's name was vague. My trust told me to let it go. 2 weeks later, I saw a $140 charge at the Velvet Lounge, timestamped 8:45 p.m. I asked if she celebrated her birthday with friends there. She said yes, but I later discovered our supper reservation at Olive and Vine went unused. I chalked it up to booking mix-ups. Beneath my relief I felt a slight pang, when I buried beneath an avalanche of work emails. At home, my wristwatch, engraved with our wedding date, kept ticking, oblivious to the tremors in my chest. I realized I'd missed routine detours, the night she took the scenic route home through Mill Street rather than our usual highway exit, supposedly to admire the holiday lights. The times she hummed quietly in the shower, phone tucked behind her back, face set in concentration. I now pictured her reading messages meant for Jason, her reflection in the steamed, glass door. Each memory unspooled into the next, weaving a tapestry of half-truths I had swallowed whole. One evening, I returned home early from work to surprise her with dinner. The house was dark except for the soft glow of the oven's timer. I called her name and found her car in the driveway. Inside, the slow tick of the clock on the microwave echoed through empty rooms. I poured 2 glasses of wine and waited. She walked in 20 minutes later, cheeks flushed, hair pressed flat against her collarbone. I asked why she was late. She muttered something about a chat with a parent over deadlines. I nodded and slid a glass toward her. I sensed relief in her eyes, as though she'd been caught by someone more suspicious than me, and I let it pass. Every time I'd chosen comfort over confrontation, I'd handed Lisa the space to hide more. And now I knew that love alone wasn't enough to guard against betrayal. I shut my laptop and stood, stretching tight shoulders aching with regret. I walked to our bedroom and retrieved my jacket from the closet. Inside its pocket lay the GPS device I'd bought, just in case, after I'd lost my keys one too many times. I pressed the tracker button and heard the soft green light flick on. Just in case, I'd said. I headed outdoors at dusk, the sky bleeding mauve and gold, and tapped the map to review Lisa's morning route one last time. Her blue dot had paused at Juniper Café for over half an hour. I closed the app, letting the phone rest heavy in my hand. The memory of her laughter at Jason's joke, a sound that once comforted me, now felt like a summons to face facts. On the edge of Riverside Park, tulips nodded in the evening breeze. I closed my eyes, inhaling the scent of damp earth and fallen petals. This place held our happiest moments, our engagement, our first steps as parents, our plans for the future. Now it stood silent witness to my doubt. My jaw set as I opened my journal and scribbled, "I will reconstruct the truth, brick by brick, memory by memory." Each word etched resolve into the page. I slipped the tracker and pen back into my pocket and turned toward home, stride purposeful. Tomorrow, I'd gather more data, cross-reference every detail, consult with those I trusted. I would piece together the puzzle of Lisa's deceit. And when I had the full picture, I would decide how to rebuild, or let go, of the life we once shared. I woke before dawn, the hush of the bedroom broken only by the gentle tick of my wristwatch, engraved with our wedding date, and reached for my phone, opening the GPS companion app to see Lisa's blue dot stationary at home but her recent detour through Maple Avenue still echoing in my mind, tapping location history. I watched the trail of her commute unfurl, front door at 8:45 a.m., Elm Street at 8:47 a.m., a sudden turn onto Maple Avenue at 8:50 a.m., a 5-minute pause outside Juniper Café, then a return home by 10 a.m., and my chest tightened as I realized this was no accident but a pattern, so I slipped into my jacket carrying the phone and a notebook to the kitchen, brewed black coffee with no sugar or distraction today, and sat at the island where days ago Lisa had promised a stroll, opening a blank page and dating it June 14, 6:02 a.m., confirmed GPS route. Maple Avenue detour. Juniper Café stop, noting timestamps and circling them in red ink, determined to gather facts before emotion. Step 1. Secure the GPS logs, so I called customer support under the guise of a technical inquiry and requested a CSV export of all Lisa's location pings for the past 2 weeks, then drafted a spreadsheet on my laptop with columns for date, time, latitude/longitude, address, and notes, and by the time the CSV arrived, I had mapped rows for June 1 to 14th, importing the data to reveal the detour glaringly out of place among predictable home-to-work pings. Next, I needed visual confirmation of her path, so I recalled the apartment complex's security cameras covering the sidewalk by the cafe entrance and called the building manager, reporting a broken lamp, and politely asked to review the June 13 footage between 8:45 a.m. and 9:15 a.m., which he agreed to provide at 3 p.m. So I set a reminder. At work, my mind churned through data between meetings as I drafted an email to my friend Greg, the police detective and youth baseball coach, asking whether chain of custody mattered for personal use footage, and received a prompt reply confirming I should note times, camera IDs, and dates while securing originals, advice I resolved to follow. Lunchtime found me flagging any location pings where Lisa's dot paused more than 2 minutes off route, June 4th, June 7th, June 10th, June 13th, with only June 13th pointing to Juniper Café, an anomaly I marked for deeper inquiry. After work I collected the labeled USB drive from camera A, sidewalk, June 13th, transferred the .mp4 to a secured evidence folder, made 2 copies, one external, one encrypted cloud, then watched the video, timestamp, June 13, 2025 8:49 and 12 seconds, displayed in red at the corner as Lisa in her navy trench coat checked her phone mid-stride, veered toward the cafe entrance, crossed the sidewalk at 8:51 a.m., nodded to the barista, and settled at an outdoor table. I froze the frame and exported a still image labeled Lisa_Cafe_06. 13_8-51am.jpg, then turned to social media, searching Jason Whitman on Facebook and Instagram to find his public June 13th post of 2 steaming lattes on a wooden table tagged at Juniper Café with the caption, "Catching up after a decade," whose timestamp matched 9:15 a.m., so I screenshot and saved it alongside my other files. Leaning back in my chair as screen glare burned my eyes, I realized GPS logs, security footage, and social media evidence had converged into undeniable proof, but I needed perspective, so I slipped outside to Riverside Park's tulip beds in late-day sunlight, found our bench under the oak tree with phone and notebook in my lap, and wrote a single line, "Truth gathered." Next, decide path forward, confrontation or closure, resisting the urge to text Lisa because I owed her a face-to-face conversation rather than frantic messages. That evening, I gathered materials on the dining room table, the printed GPS timeline, cafe still image, location data spreadsheet, Jason's screenshot, laying them in chronological order, reviewing Greg's advice and labeling each item with camera ID, timestamp, and storage location, and made 2 copies of the printed documents, one for rehearsal, one for presentation. Before bed I opened my journal under June 14, 10:45 p.m., and wrote, collected and organized multi-source evidence. Verified chain of custody. Emotions, calm determination. Next step, confront Lisa with documented facts, setting the alarm for dawn, feeling the sharp edge of betrayal soften under the weight of methodical preparation, knowing that tomorrow I would speak the truth I had so carefully assembled. I heard the click of the front door and felt my pulse quicken, though I stayed rooted by the kitchen island. Lisa set down her bag and offered her tired smile, one I'd known for years, but tonight it felt fragile. I inhaled, steadying myself. Spread out in front of me were the GPS timeline on my laptop, the cafe still from the security footage, and Jason's social media screenshot. "Lisa," I began, meeting her eyes. "We need to talk." Her shoulders stiffened. "Thomas, what's wrong?" I tapped the screen to the Juniper Café image. "You told me this morning you'd be at Riverside Park." I held up the frozen frame of her in the navy trench coat. "Instead, you met Jason here at 8:51 a.m. Her glance flicked from the photo to my face. That was nothing. We just ran into each other. I turned the laptop to show her the GPS map, the blue dot tracing her detour off Maple Avenue. Ran into each other doesn't explain a 20-minute detour or the security cam footage. I paused to let it sink in. And then you posted a photo with him at 9:15. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, Thomas. I didn't think it mattered. I folded my arms, fighting to keep my voice even. Honesty mattered when we promised transparency. Every unspoken moment chips away at trust. I picked up the printout of the cafe post. This wasn't an innocent catch-up. You lied about where you were. She bit her lip. I know I lied. I was confused, seeing Jason brought back old feelings, and I didn't know how to tell you. I set the printout down gently and reached for the crumpled map of Riverside Park, the one I'd printed last week. I smoothed its creases. I planned that walk for us, I said quietly. Tulips in bloom, our first picnic spot by the oak. I needed that time with you. Lisa's shoulders sagged, tears spilling free. I'm sorry I stole that from us. I leaned forward, voice measured. I'm willing to rebuild, but not on secrets. From this point on, I expect full transparency, calendar entries, your location, and open communication. No more unilateral detours, real or emotional. I held up the GPS tracker. This device was to ease my worries, not to catch you in lies. Her tears glistened in the kitchen light. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. I exhaled, relief mingling with lingering hurt. We'll start with counseling. We'll set boundaries and respect them. I slid the park map across the island toward her. I still want that walk, but only when trust is earned back. Lisa picked up the map with shaking hands. I promise, Thomas. No more secrets. I love you. Her words hung between us, fragile as glass. I nodded once. I love you, too. But love alone isn't enough. The silence that followed was filled only by the soft hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the brass clock on the windowsill. I retrieved 2 mugs, poured herbal tea, and handed one to her. We sipped slowly, the warmth a small comfort. Standing side by side, I felt the weight of confrontation lift, replaced by cautious hope. Our marriage had fractured, but in that moment, I believed it could be pieced back together, one honest step at a time. I woke to birdsong filtering through the half-open window, the morning air cool against my skin. For the first time in weeks, I didn't reach for my phone to check Lisa's location. Instead, I stretched and slid out of bed, breathing in the faint scent of tulips drifting from the vase on my nightstand. Over the kitchen counter, I found Lisa already brewing coffee. Her smile when our eyes met was tentative but genuine, an unspoken promise that we were both committed to this new path. We settled at the table with the crumpled park map between us and 2 steaming mugs. I guided us through the agreements we'd sketched out the night before, weekly counseling appointments every Wednesday at 7 p.m., shared calendar updates for personal and us time, and a rule to address any uncomfortable feelings immediately rather than letting them fester. When Lisa asked if I still wanted to walk in Riverside Park today, I felt a surge of relief. Absolutely, I said, meeting her gaze. Let's do it. By mid-morning, the tulip beds glowed in vibrant rows along the park's winding paths. As we walked side by side toward our oak tree bench, I felt the last remnants of tension ease from my shoulders. Lisa kept her phone tucked away in her pocket, her steps unhurried. We paused beneath the oak's branching canopy, and she retrieved the folded map, smoothing its creases with gentle fingers. I reached out and held her hand, the solidity of her grip grounding me. Thank you, I said softly. For trusting me again. In the weeks that followed, our routine found a steady heartbeat. Wednesday evenings became our shared sanctuary, the counselor's office where we learned new ways to listen and speak. We practiced check-in rituals, brief moments each morning to share what we were feeling. On weekends, I resumed hikes with my brother, returning with stories and laughter that Lisa greeted over lunch. Our children noticed the shift, too. One Saturday, our daughter announced she felt like we were a real team again, and our son asked when the next picnic would be. Their hopeful faces affirmed that rebuilding trust wasn't just for us, but for our family's future. The GPS tracker, once a symbol of doubt, spent its days tucked away in my desk drawer. Now, I used it only as a practical tool, activating it during separate business trips so Lisa could rest easy when I was on the road, and vice versa. The red LED that once smoldered in my pocket became a quiet green light of mutual care. Instead of prying, we turned to one another with questions and openness. How was your meeting? Can you text when you're headed home? Those small requests, once poisoned by mistrust, now felt nurturing and kind. One evening in early July, I sat on the porch steps with my journal in hand. I tapped my pen against the page until I found the words. July 10th, 9 p.m., first family picnic since spring. Laughter healed more than words. Trust mending, one moment at a time. I closed the journal and looked up at the brass clock on the mantel, the one Lisa and I win together each morning. Its steady tick reminded me that healing is a process of countless small turns, each one bringing us closer to a shared rhythm. As cicadas sang their summer chorus, I felt the warmth of possibility. Our marriage was no longer defined by a single detour, but by every step we chose to take together. Hand in hand, we walked back toward the oak tree, the tulips now fading to green. In that simple act, choosing honesty over secrecy, connection over distance, I realized that resilience isn't about returning to what was, but forging what can be. Ahead lay unknown paths, but we would navigate them side by side, guided by empathy, strengthened by shared resolve, and sustained by the quiet, reclaimed rhythm of time.